Hello, welcome. Depth of field and street photography. Two different things, but they go hand in hand. "95% of the street photography is based on depth of field. Depth of field plays such an important role in street photography that it's become the core of street photography. To explain it better, let's go through some of my pictures which are street photography pictures, and then we'll take it further that how depth of field plays such an important role in street photography. And there is one thing which is binding all these pictures together, and one common factor which is visible in most of these pictures is that they don't have a shallow depth of field. In street photography, you need to have a good depth of field where everything is visible and they are interwoven with each other and they create a story together, not separately. So your main subject is there and there are elements, but these all elements are interconnected to your main subject, and that is what makes these all pictures strong. All these things together, and to bind them together and keep them interconnected. What are the things which controls depth of field? There are three things which controls depth of field. Number one is the focal length of the lens. The second thing which controls depth of field is the distance between the camera and the subject. And the third thing which controls depth of field is the aperture which you are using. These three things are the main things which controls your depth of field. Now let's try to understand that how these three variables which are controlling depth of field, they work. The focal length of the lens, like the bigger the focal length of the lens, the less depth of field you have. Like if you're using a 200 mm lens, you will have less depth of field. So you need to use the lenses which are less than 50 mm lenses. You can use 35, you can use 28, 16 mm, but less than 50 mm is good for good depth of field. The second thing which controls the depth of field is the aperture. Yes, use a bigger number. Always use a bigger number to get a good depth of field. So use a number like 22, 16, 11, 8. And the third factor which controls depth of field is the distance between the camera and the subject. The more the distance, the better the depth of field. And the more closer you go, lesser depth of field you'll get. So always remember these three things. This will create images with good depth of field. Number one is the focal length of the lens. Number two is the aperture of the lens you're using. And number three is the distance between the camera and your subject. Until the next time when we meet again, keep learning, keep growing, and keep shooting.